Hello everyone, welcome to an analysis of dance, where we discuss the movements and debuts of the Billboard Hot Dance charts in immaculate detail, with in-depth reviews of each debut each week. I mean, I'm not one to call a perfect prediction, especially with how much music sneaks under my radar quite often, but this week will probably be the closest to that for me. I mean, I called ILLENIUM, Kx5, and Fred again all debuting, and that's all we got this week. Granted, one of them is an interesting case for completely different reasons, but alas, this week turned out exactly as quiet as I expected. Thank God. Unfortunately, what isn't quiet is our new number one, and one that I depressingly called, even despite being total fucking garbage. I'm Good Bleu by David Guetta and BB Rexa. I mean, I guess I can congratulate David Guetta for getting a second number one hit after so long, but that's also giving this absolute pile of shit with no redeeming qualities more than credit than it deserves. What's more worrying is with this song's growing radio, streaming, and sales, it's gonna be a number one for some time. Fuck's sake. I mean, I will admit Break My Soul by Beyonce falling to number 2 has cooled on me a little bit, but really I'd take it over I'm Good Bleu any day of the week. Granted, it would have had an uphill battle to maintain number one regardless, given the collapse on radio and falls on streaming, especially with Beyonce moving to Cuff It as the new single, so this song might be on its way out finally. This could also mean that Hold Me Closer by Elton John and Britney Spears could actually rebound despite being knocked to number 3, where the radio is surging and streaming seems to be stable now. Kind of surprised there. It's neck and neck for the second spot. We'll see how things turn out in the next few weeks. Thankfully, Numb by Marshmello and Khalid also rebounded back up to number 4, where the radio is holding this up significantly even if streaming did see a loss this week. It's in an awkward spot to say the least. What's interesting is Cold Heart P&A remixed by Elton John and Dua Lipa down to number 5, where it's right on the edge of finally being kicked out. Even though there's a possibility that Unholy of all songs could debut in the top 5, the song might be on its final week. We'll have to see how much Billboard considers that song dance and whether it will break through, even if I personally don't think it's gonna happen. All of this leaves BZAP Music Sessions Volume 52 by BZAP and Quevedo isolated at number 6, where growing radio really can't save a complete fall on streaming and sales just not being there at all. It's really vulnerable to be overtaken soon. Thankfully, not anytime soon by Don't You Worry by the Black Eyed Peas, Shakira, and David Guetta at number 7 though, where it seems to have stalled out on radio, and really that's all that's keeping this afloat. Thank God. This could open up the door for Murder in My Mind by Cordell at number 8, where the streaming is much better and sales are slowly starting to turn on this. With no radio though, I don't see it making a huge challenge, but it could benefit from losses above it. What's absolutely going to pose a huge threat in the long run is a new arrival to our top 10, and one I'm so pleased is here. BOTA Baddest of Them All by Elisa Rose and Interplanetary Criminal at number 9, where it's got significant momentum across the board. With the rate it's going, it could easily overtake a lot of these songs, and I'm all for that. And once again, we have Massive by Drake closing out the top 10 at number 10 on collapsing streaming and radio. No expectations this is gonna last. Really, if a certain debut from last week didn't fall out, this would have been gone. Speaking of which, our falls and fall-offs, where the only notable dropout is Not Over Yet by KSI and Tom Grennan, exiting as expected and having done little to nothing on the charts, also as expected. Our falls though, honestly these were all over the place. I mean, we had our debuts losing like Work Up in Love by Kygo Griffin and Callum Scott to 17, and Power Remember Who You Are by Spinner, Summer Walker and DJ Snake featuring Ayana down hard to 34, as well as the Welcome Fall for Cafe Con Leche by Pitbull down to 42. But we also saw Deep Down by Alok, Ella Air and Kenny Doe featuring Never Dial off its gains to 41, as well as Stay With Me by Calvin Harris, Justin Timberlake, Halsey and Pharrell Williams just utterly nosediving to 25. Really surprised by both of these. I thought they would have had a little bit more staying power. The real interesting story though comes in our jumps and comebacks, where the Fisher rework of World Hold On by Bob Sinclair featuring Steve Edwards managed to scrape back at the very bottom at 50. That's a welcome surprise for me. What's also surprising is that we only had one game this week. Metamorphosis by Interworld to 21, because let's face it, funk songs like this just chart here on average and will always gain momentum. It's routine for this chart at this point, and I'm not about to complain. But before we get to our new arrivals, I'd like to discuss a non-eligible knocker. This is an interesting case though, and one that I've probably already spoiled on my Twitter. A song that absolutely should have charted here given it was predicted to do so, plus the fact it has over 4 million streams, has charted on the UK singles chart, and most importantly was actually eligible, unlike what we got debuting instead. Okay, this is just ridiculous. This song came out last week, has gone viral. You would have think it would have had every reason to debut is really high, especially with double the streaming numbers of our actual top debut. But instead, we got the wrong song charting, much lower too, and this was left behind and given absolutely no attention from Billboard. I mean, I like to think that next week we could see a correction and this could actually chart, but in the offhand chance that it doesn't hit the dance charts at all, let me just say this right now. This song is goddamn excellent and a really good sign of what's to come with Actual Life 3. An absolutely gorgeous house song with some fantastic vocal integration from 070 Shake of all people, with terrific bass production, a really consistent dark vibe, and some of the most gorgeous minimal melodies I've heard all year. Not only is this a song that manages to work in a club setting as shown by the fantastic Boiler Room sets, it also holds up really well on its own. It's such a marvel to listen to. Really, it's a goddamn shame this didn't chart. It could have had the potential to be a huge hit. Here's to hoping it gets included or corrected next week, but for now, please check this one out if you haven't. It's absolutely fantastic. But now we move on to our actual new arrivals this week, starting off with number 38, Take Me High by Cascade and Deadmau5 as Kx5. I genuinely don't think anyone was expecting Escape to have the run it had. And I include both Cascade and Deadmau5 in that camp too. It's by far their biggest hit since the dance chart's inception and could arguably what's opened the doors for both to have a long mainstream run again. That's been well overdue. I was honestly quite curious how they'd follow that up though. Escape was clearly built around Deadmau5's signature progressive house sound, so I was expecting some sort of balancing act where Cascade's techno side would be explored, and sure enough, that's exactly what this is. More of a darker techno cut based on a soulful vocal and almost entirely instrumental. Now I will admit that it's not as instantly god tier as Escape was, mainly on the back of drops that do take a while to properly click, especially with how much they lack melody from the build-ups, but I honestly found them to be a nice contrast, especially with just how satisfying the bass production is against the tech touches. The build-ups though are what I really love, and what really elevate the song for me, as we get these trance-esque synths that play against some pretty melodies, even against a larger sounding mix that sounds custom made to go off in a big club setting. So yeah, it's not Escape 2.0, but I'm honestly glad they took this darker club approach. It gives this collaborative alias more diversity, and shows these two can work outside the typical comfort zone. This is fantastic, check it out. Number 30, Bleu, Better With Time by Fred Again. Okay, now it's time to talk about the other Fred Again song that actually charted. And it's funny, this literally released 4 days before the charts came out. It literally should not have been eligible under any circumstance. What this has me thinking is that either Billboard secretly changed their tracking week, or that this was an error and this got labeled as the eligible song despite Danielle being out way longer. Either way, if it did debut early, it's gonna surge next week. I'm all for that, especially given I like the song a lot too. Yes, it's more on the garage side, which isn't as instantly strong as the house and funk stuff that Fred Again has done, but the vibe honestly gives me similar vibes to that of Bicep's last album, Isles, which is a good thing for me given how much I really like that album. Bleu's vocals are pitch shifted in such a way where they syncopate against the beat really well. He's a very welcome presence here. I also love the hook and drops here, where the bass is so clean against the choppy synths and pitch shifted backing vocals to create a really emotionally resonant vibe on top of one catchy as hell vocal melody. It's rare you get songs like this charting on average, especially out of the UK, but Fred Again has managed to find that line in the sand where he can consistently get this kind of sound to chart on the US dance charts, and that's all the more exciting for this chart going forward. I mean, I still prefer Danielle, but both of these singles have me really excited for Actual Life 3. I can't wait to see what comes next. This is fantastic too. And finally, number 19, From the Ashes by ILLENIUM and Skylar Grey. Do I even have to talk about this collab? I mean, as soon as I saw that ILLENIUM was working with Skylar Grey, I just got this sinking feeling we were going to get one of the most boring, played out and generic songs of both artists' careers. Which is saying something for Skylar Grey, especially given I've not been a fan of her work at all. So okay, rock bottom expectations, and wow, this lived up to everything I was dreading and more so. This is just nothing here that's remotely interesting. You've heard the same atmospheric future-based sound with the guitar lead verses, you've heard the generic female vocals and tons of reverb, you've had the faux inspirational lyrics with no depth or interesting content, you've heard the flat drops where this feels like a total rip-off of the formula of Nightlights. This just adds absolutely nothing to the conversation. If this is the level that ILLENIUM has reached at this point in his career, and really it's not his first total dud this year, maybe he should take some time off and refine his craft, because this is a total fucking snooze fest and absolutely terrible all the way down. Not good at all. In fact, this might actually be his worst song, period. Skip this. And yeah, it's easily getting the worst here. Just absolutely terrible. Completely devoid of anything I like or would find reason to listen to. I mean, thank God the other two debuts are absolutely quality, where I'm honestly going to give Take Me High by Kx5 the slight edge over Bleu, better with time, even if that song isn't nearly as strong for me. Next week, honestly, I'm not sure. There's no real huge debut on the horizon. Hopefully we can see Fred again given the proper justice he deserves after this slip up this week. But yeah, that's all for this episode of an analysis of dance. See you next time.